Welcome and Yonjong everybody to a special edition of Hmong American Weekly. As you know, we have been super busy this past spring, summer, fall, but we're really excited to bring to you a really special pre-election preview tonight of some Hmong American candidates, not quite first time, but newer candidates who are running for office who you may have not heard of. Tonight, we're also additionally joined by Speaker Melissa Hortman, who will talk a little bit about the role of the speaker and make a plea for folks to support the platform, the DFL platform. But again, my name is Terry Tao. I'm joined tonight by State Representative Xiong. Many of you know we started this show a couple of years ago to combat the disinformation in the Hmong community. And so Hmong American Weekly is an opportunity for us to share more about what's happening locally and nationally in regards to politics in the Hmong American community. All right, we are really, really honored today to have Speaker Melissa Hortman join us. Speaker Hortman is the Speaker of the Minnesota House and has served in this role for a couple of years now. The district she represents is Brooklyn Park, correct? And so parts of Brooklyn Park, so folks out there may know her from her seat there. We are pleased today to have her join us to talk a little bit about herself, the district, how and why you became speaker, and what your role is essentially as Speaker of the House. Because we do have a number of folks who are not aware of what the speaker actually does.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I assume you just want me to dive in and go ahead and answer all those questions. Sounds good. Well, it's been my honor and privilege to serve as the state representative for the people of Brooklyn Park and parts of Coon Rapids since 2004. And I've been really honored to be not only the representative for my community, but a resident of my community. My husband and I chose Brooklyn Park because it's a diverse community, and we wanted to raise our family in a place that was rich in diversity and have our children grow up in a community that was rich in diversity, and really have loved being a part of the Brooklyn Park community. So I first ran for office in 1998, and then I ran again in 2002. I lost both those times, but I finally won in 2004. And so the good people of Brooklyn Park and Coon Rapids have seen my campaign literature on and off for about 24 years or 26 years at this point. The issues that we face in Brooklyn Park and the things that motivated me to run have really occupied most of my time. In Brooklyn Park, we have often, and Coon Rapids, being in the North Metro, we have often felt a little bit ignored in the bigger transportation picture and education resources. We know that there's some suburbs that have a lot of money, and they have really great highways, and they're close to the airport. And so they have this huge property tax wealth, which not only gives them fantastic transportation infrastructure, but provides them a much higher level of funding for their schools. So I ran as really a drive to increase equity for my community. Growing up in the blue collar Northwest suburbs, wanted to make sure that the kids in my community had the same access to a high quality education as the children in any other suburb in the Twin Cities or anywhere in the country with different zip codes and different levels of wealth. So you asked a little bit, what's it like to be the speaker? I don't know if any of you have ever met a Girl Scout leader or a Boy Scout leader or people who've been teachers, but I think it's shepherding a little bit, making sure the team stays together. I guess maybe coach would be a better example, because or a conductor of an orchestra, you have some people are very, very talented at the flute or the viola, the violin or the cello, but if there's not a good consistent effort to be literally on the same sheet of music, you can't be the best that your team can be. So my job as the speaker is to make sure that everyone has an opportunity for a solo and a highlight, but that by and large, the work that we're doing works together as a team. The things that we do lead us to be successful as a team.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman. So you've made history as one of the few women to be Speaker of the Minnesota House. This year, there will also be many historical moments, and in particular, your House DFL caucus will grow more diverse in its membership. What will this mean to you as you push for policy and budgets to impact the most vulnerable Minnesotans who are also from communities of color?
Yeah, there's two moments that really stand out in my mind when you talk about increasing diversity in the Minnesota House of Representatives. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost the presidential election to Donald Trump, it was a really low moment for lots of reasons, because it was clear what was to come, a lot more sexism, a lot more racism, and really the country moving backwards. But at the same time, we had a bright spot in the Minnesota House of Representatives. The class of 2016 was the most diverse class that we had ever had in the Minnesota House, in the DFL and in the body itself. We had a number of Native representatives for the first time. There was more than one at a time. And we had a growing Minnesota Asian Pacific Caucus and United Black Legislative Caucus. So as we were getting through those two very tough years of Donald Trump, we had a bunch of historic firsts in the Minnesota House DFL, and we all felt that empowered. As a minority, we couldn't win any votes, but we had a voice, and we could call out when there was racism and there was sexism and there was inequity. And then the other moment in time that comes to mind is in 2019, when I got the opportunity to become the Speaker of the House, and I had an opportunity to start to do something about the institutional racism of seniority, right? As diverse communities are newer to the Minnesota House of Representatives, a system that only has chairs who are the most senior is inherently structured to benefit white members who have served the longest. So it's been really a joy for me to toss out the seniority chart and to put really capable and diverse individuals in charge of big money committees. And that the job, what I tell our caucus, the job of increasing equity is all of us. This is not the job of our people of color and Indigenous caucus. This is the job of everyone. And it's not like we look at a $30 million expenditure on top of the state budget, but we look at every single budget that we implement. Is there equity in the health budget? Is there equity in the education budget? Is there equity in the public safety budget? And that as we're putting the whole thing together, it's the butter in the batter. It's not the frosting on top of the cake.
Madam Speaker, switching on to the campaign side, and I know that I've been working on a campaign side to help out with our caucus too. It is a midterm election year. What's your message? Who and what should our viewers at home be paying attention to, and why should they vote for our House DFL candidates?
Yeah, I went and heard the vice president speak when she was in Minneapolis a day ago, and I think she put it really well. In 2020, we had record voter turnout, young populations, diverse populations. And when they went to vote, they voted because they wanted certain things to happen, and Democrats delivered. What you saw on the national level is that we had a Democratic president, Democratic U.S. Senate, and a Democratic House, and they delivered. They are taking a giant step forward in reducing child poverty with the child tax credit. They took a giant step forward on our infrastructure. People said, hey, we don't think that certain communities should be exposed to lead in their water. The Biden administration passed funding to replace all the lead pipes in the entire country. And so what we can say to people is that Democrats deliver. And what we need in this election is the same kind of turnout. That voice that they brought in 2020 to the ballot box, it made a difference. And we need to make that difference here in Minnesota, because right now, as you know, from serving in the Minnesota House of Representatives, that the Republican-led Senate has blocked progress on so many things. And the voters have the power to change that. The voters have the power to let us increase education funding, to let us fund a public safety system that's about crime prevention and investing in communities as well as law enforcement. So the community has the power, as they proved with their votes in 2020, to dictate the results that we will give to them by showing up, voting for our team, and giving us permission and endorsement to move these things forward.
So as you make that case for why folks, particularly Hmong American folks who are tuning in, should vote for DFL House candidates and also for the DFL slate overall, do you have any closing comments for our viewers tonight who still might be on the fence, finally tuning in about this year's statewide elections, state level elections?
Yep, absolutely. So I think that there's 7 key issues where Minnesota Democrats are in the right place and Minnesota Republicans are in the wrong place. Number one, first and foremost, public education. Democrats support fully funding our schools so that there's enough teachers and social workers and counselors in our schools. Number two, affordable health care. Only Democrats will take on the entrenched financial interests of the pharmaceutical companies and the health insurance companies. Number three is an economy that works for all. We are the people who brought the frontline bonuses. And of course, they were small, right? But at least we were able to deliver money to people who worked in grocery stores during the pandemic. Republicans would have given tax cuts to rich people instead. And then there's 4 issues that are super hot this year. Number one is bodily autonomy. You know, the decision in Dobbs, you can view that as a women's reproductive health care decision, but it's also about our personal liberty and our freedom. And what is next? If we don't have the right to decide what health care that we need in the case of an ectopic pregnancy, a rape, or other circumstances, then where does the government's right to interfere with my body stop? Number two is climate change. Our planet is literally on fire. It's degrading the air quality that we're breathing. This does impact communities of color more often than other communities. And so climate change is an equity issue. Gun violence prevention. You saw in Uvalde another shocking, horrifying mass shooting. And we can do something about this. But as much as the mass shootings are terrorizing our country, the suicides in our country because of guns. So it is something that affects families across the country, whether they've been their community's been affected by a mass shooting. And then finally, democracy itself. And this is the most important thing, because if we don't, as citizens, have the power to vote for our leaders and have our votes counted, then we don't have anything. We don't have a democracy anymore. And right now, unfortunately, we have a Republican Party that's dominated by election deniers and people who would not secure each and every one of our right to have our ballot counted at the end of the day. So that would be my case, that Democrats are in the right place in 2022. We're the right team, and we will deliver if the voters come to the ballot box and they give us the power to do that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for joining us and for sharing more about yourself and also the case for the DFL this year. We appreciate you being on the show and wish you luck. We know you're headed out to doors and meeting with more constituents today, but thank you again.
Thank you so much, and big shout out to you and Jay for all the work you're doing to educate folks on the election. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
As the speaker noted earlier about her role as a state legislature plays a big role in your everyday life, from putting your child's E12 and her education to fixing our roads and bridges. State lawmakers work on setting state tax policy and funding state human services program. And so for our next guest tonight, they are seeking office to do that and more. And so our first question goes to Council Member Susan Kayeeb Phab, and then Leslie will follow up with a response. And so currently, Minnesota is one of only 2 state legislatures in the country divided, which led to a lot of compromises and unfinished work. If Minnesota is a divided legislature again, how will you, Councilmember Phab, work with your counterpart to move legislation? And what will be your top legislative priorities?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on this show and an opportunity to kind of speak about some of my thoughts and what I'd like to do at the state Senate. I think the first one is always when we're working with people from all different walks of life, from all different perspectives, is we really have to find our common goals that we have. We have to work with each other and remind each other and ourselves that we're working for Minnesotans. We're working for people. And that means that we have to work together. We have to find those common grounds. We have to make sure that we focus on creating solutions. And that's something that I'm going to continuously remind myself and others about. Some of the priorities that I have going into the state Senate is making sure that we are protecting women's rights and the right for reproductive rights. You know, this election is so important. I know people always say every election is important, but I will say that that is very true, but so much so this election, because it is our democracy and our rights that are at stake this election. Investing in education for our children in our children's future is something that's one of my top priorities. Passing common sense gun laws. We've had a lot of tragedies around this nation, and that's something we have to make sure that we address. Providing health care, affordability, and access is something that's big for me. I personally have struggled with healthcare almost all my adult life as a small business owner and able to afford healthcare and deciding whether or not I'm going to give my children the kind of healthcare they need. There's times where I've decided not to take my kids to the doctors because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford my deductible, my very high deductible. Those are things that we don't ever want parents to have to gamble with, is their children's health based on whether or not they can pay. Our seniors and our elders who often are choosing between prescription drugs that they need and food on the table. Those are things that we shouldn't have to do. Again, healthcare is a right and it's not a privilege. So those are my top priorities going to the Senate.
And remind folks where your Senate district is.
So my Senate district is Senate District 38, which is Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Osseo.
Okay, thank you. And Leslie, who is another first-time candidate for state office, is running in House District 67A, which is the northeast corner of the east side of St. Paul, in House District 67A. Liz, welcome to the show, and quickly introduce yourself, and same question to you too.
Sure, awesome. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Terry. Really appreciate the invitation to be joining you guys this evening. Like Jay said, my name is Liz Lee, and I am running to represent the northern half of 67. Hello, neighbor. Jay will be my neighbor to the south. Because of redistricting, we have some new boundaries. So Minnehaha is the southern border that Jay and I share, and then sadly, I've lost most of Payne Avenue, and so I'm everything east of Arcade, south of Larpenteur, and west of McKnight. But you know, excited because I guess we had more people move into the district. I grew up here. I am a Hmong daughter. I grew up in the Hayden Heights area of the district for folks who are familiar, and really excited to be the incoming rep. If everything works out, I'll be the first woman to ever represent the district in the whole history of the state, which is very sad. But in the year 2022, and in the year of the fight for reproductive justice and to protect Roe and all of the rights that stem from Roe, I think that's really important. Our district is also one of the most diverse districts in the state. We're a majority district, and most of that is our Asian American population. So I mean, again, sadly, I will be the first Asian person to ever represent this House district. So I don't carry that. I carry that, I guess, with all the gravity and the responsibility that comes with it. And I want to say, obviously, that means that folks want things to be done, and if the legislature is divided, I always say that we all care about working families, right? I think it's just the question of how we get there that's different between Democrats and Republicans. And for me, I'm very much a policy person, and so I always want to make sure that at the end of the day, when we're passing legislation, right, like it's good policy that comes through and everyone gets a piece out of it. Proud to say, right, that I have a track record of working with Republicans to get things done, especially when our goals are aligned, right? Whether that's health equity, right? Because even though there are a lot of health equity issues here between Black mothers, mothers of color, and hospitals, rural mothers also, right, have a lot of higher maternal mortality rates as well, right? So I'm always looking for those issues where there might be alignment to create opportunities for more partnerships. And then I know we have a lot more, so with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jay and Terry.
Well, a real kind of important issue, speaking, we've been talking about women's rights, but another issue we know that has been really prevalent in the Hmong community in particular is the issue of domestic violence, right? And unfortunately, we've been seeing it end up in cases where it's murder-suicides. If elected to your seat, how will you address domestic violence in our state? And I'll start with you first, Liz.
Sure. I mean, I do very much want to start this conversation by just acknowledging that intimate partner violence happens in every community. We're all 4 Hmong people here, and I know that in Minnesota, our stories and our trauma, have been part of the news for like 20 years, right? Like since I was 8. But in a district like mine, when there is a higher Hmong population, this is a major issue, right? There was a recent case, right, very close to Hayden Heights, where there was more intimate partner violence. And I think the important thing, going back to what I said, is making sure that there are resources that are culturally competent and appropriate. And I think we always say that, but we have to say that again, right? Because I think we take that for granted, right? Whether it's mental health services or it's family support services or family counseling. And then the other side, right, I think is really to just empower women and girls. I think we take that for granted still, but there's still so much work to be done. I posted about the case in my district because the woman who was murdered actually went to a lot of the same schools that I went to, right? And we're the same age, but I know we still have there are a lot of disparities, right, between what girls in our Hmong community and just across the state are able to have access to. And so for me, I'm always thinking about how we can bridge that.
Thank you. Councilmember Pa, what are your thoughts on how you would address this issue, particularly on the state Senate side?
Yeah. Well, the recent domestic violence cases have led to several deaths in our Hmong community, and then also deaths within just Minnesota in general of domestic violence cases. It's been so sad, especially of late with COVID and also with just recent mental health issues that are on the rise, and is truly a crisis for our community. I think what needs to happen is that our state must expand funding for domestic violence education, help, and resources. And to Liz's point, it has to be culturally specific. So I can't emphasize how important it is to truly have organizations within our community, our very diverse community, really address these issues within different cultures, because we all react and accept help in a different way. And those who are working with the different communities knows best how to get the help and the resources out there. So culturally specific education resources is critical in combating domestic violence. The other thing too is I truly believe that education is the main preventative work that we need to do. It's critical to addressing domestic violence from even happening in the first place. There's so many people who realize that they have a problem when it comes to domestic violence, but they don't know where to get help. And oftentimes they get the runaround. And so how do we make that easier and more accessible to people? The state definitely needs to address this as a priority and make sure that we have those resources in place.
Last question, since we have a little bit of time, is that Speaker Hortman earlier made a case for fully funding education. And I'm a parent of 2 kids in public schools. I'm a public school kid myself. Many of you know, many folks in the Hmong community have been the beneficiaries of our public school system. Tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from voters, Hmong and other communities, but also how you're thinking about this piece around fully funding education, and what does that look like? And I'll start with you first, Councilmember Pa.
So I fully support fully funding education, and that's one of my priorities as well. Talking at the doors, not everyone is for fully funded education, and I think most of the people that aren't don't have kids in the education system anymore, and they don't really realize the deficiencies that we have, and truly the gap. And so, but those parents who still have kids in the school system, K through 12, they understand it. They know that the schools are not getting the funding that's needed to educate our children, that our teachers and our school staff need that support. So there's a lot more people for it than they are against it. But I truly believe we're one of the nation that puts the least amount of funding in our education system. And this is comparing ourselves to other nations. It's sad. We really need to be the leader when it comes to education. And it's time that we start doing that. And so I'm hoping that that will be something that we can put on as a policy that we can get passed in this next legislative session, that we get enough support for that. But I'll tell you, as a parent of 4 children and a 5th one on the way, that education is critical to our future. Our children is our future, and it's critical.
Thank you. Liz, same question?
Sure. So I am a very proud product of the St. Paul Public Schools. I went to SPPS, you know, from K through to 12th grade. And, you know I was really fortunate to have really good teachers and, you know, be accepted to schools that really helped prepare me. But I know that's not the case anymore, especially because, you know, teacher retention has been an issue, right? Especially because of the pandemic. And then also, again, we've never funded our public schools at the level that we should. I think we have a couple opportunities in the next session. One thing that I talked about in my screening with Education Minnesota, which endorsed me, thank you, is that, you know, we have to look at how we're paying for our public schools. I know the speaker alluded to this earlier. You know, right now, right, like we pay for public schools through property taxes, and so places that tend to, you know, have wealthier people with a bigger, you know, tax revenue coffer, they have better funded schools, right? And so I think there are opportunities to rethink how we finance public education and like other public goods that we know, you know, give us so much in return. So I'll leave it at that, but I'm a big believer of public schools, and you know, I'm really proud to say, you know, we, like the council member said, we do have to get our public schools up to speed. You know, technology and STEM is the future, and a lot of our public school students aren't ready for that. So I'll just say in closing, you know, one of my big things is I'd love to focus more on tech and STEM. That's something that I did when I was a staffer in Congress, and really proud to, you know, have found and created new money for public schools to have computer science courses. And I think we need to go that route too, right? We got to fund our schools, but we also have to increase the quality of the teachers and the curriculum, because that's the only way that we're ever going to catch up.
Closing remarks, sir. If people wanted to learn more about your campaigns or contact you or have questions, how can they reach out to you? And then if any last words. We'll start with you, council member.
All right. So the best way to reach me is on my cell phone number. I give my cell phone number to everyone, and that's because I truly want people to know that I'm accessible to them. They can call, text me anytime. My cell phone number is 763-600-1043. Another way is my website, which is www.susanpaforsenate.com. I just want to let everybody know that I feel so privileged and honored to be able to represent the people of Brooklyn Park my last 2 terms as council member, and I look forward to serving this community again at the state. I want to earn people's votes, and I want to be accessible to my constituents. And I look forward to working with everyone as we create better policies for better outcomes so that people can have a better life. I truly believe that good policies equals good outcomes, and that's what we want.
Leslie, same question to you.
Sure. So we have a website. It's just lizlee.org, lizlee.org. There you can get our phone number, email address, and all of our other social media channels to remind you to vote. So as you guys know, St. Paul is pretty strong Democratic. So as the DFL candidate for my seat, I am gonna win, but that means people still have to vote for me. My big goal, in the last 2 months, right, has been to help elect our folks up ticket, and also the rest of my colleagues in the House, so that we can expand our majority and like Speaker Hortman spoke about earlier, right, fully fund public schools, make sure that our kids are drinking clean water and breathing clean air. And so I would just say, even if you don't live on the east side anymore, because I know that a lot of our community members have moved into higher income brackets, right, and moved out to the suburbs and stuff, please vote, and please vote for our DFL ticket. I think one thing that I would add to her case for Democrats, right, is that the president delivered on student loan relief, and our Attorney General Keith Ellison is not one of the state attorney generals suing to stop that, right? And so if you want to pay off your loans, your debts, or if you want your kids to go to college, you have to vote for the DFL ticket, right? And that's the way that a lot of our community members have worked their way out of poverty. And so I just hope everyone takes that heart. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with your viewers tonight.
All right. Thank you again to Councilmember Pa and to Leslie today for coming. We are excited about your candidacy as first-time candidates to the Minnesota legislature, and appreciate you spending your time with us today. All right. Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you, Jay.
Another exciting part about today's show is featuring other candidates who are running first-time Hmong American candidates who are running for office. And locally here in Ramsey County in District 6, we have 2 candidates who are running for Ramsey County Commissioner. I'm really excited tonight to be joined by first by Maiv Choo Xyooj, who is running for Ramsey County Commissioner. And if for folks who don't know, the role of the commissioner is to oversee the health and human services. So anybody who's required SNAP benefits, Minnesota Care, you're going down to the county to get those benefits. Ramsey County also has taxing authority, so they're the ones that issue our tax bills to our house. They also have a taxing authority, so which they use to help pay for some of those health and human services. Counties are massive entities across the state of Minnesota, and so they were kind of a hidden but really important part of local government. And so we're really excited tonight to be joined by the 2 candidates to talk a little bit more about their platforms and priorities. So Maiv Choo, welcome. Can you talk a little bit about yourself as well as your top priorities for Ramsey County if you become elected to office?
Yes, thank you so much, Terry. And thank you, Representative Xiong, for having me on the show here. So my name is Maiv Choo Xyooj. My gender pronouns are she, her, and I am the DFL and labor endorsed candidate running for Ramsey County Commissioner. For those that don't know, in Minnesota here, DFL stands for Democratic Farmer and Labor, and that is our Democratic Party that had endorsed me, along with many of our elected leaders, as well as progressive organizations here in Minnesota. And I am a daughter of St. Paul, born and raised in St. Paul. I have 2 young kids, 4 and 6-year-olds, who both attend public school in St. Paul. My parents, my in-laws, they live with me. And so I'm a caregiver too to them, as best as I can too. And the addition of that is like having strong families. I've been so fortunate to have Even though I grew up in poverty, I've had the fortune of just having, strong family support. And also in addition to that, also public assistance. And that's where I've interacted with the county, like from a very young age. Never knew that we even had county elected leaders that represented us, right? It always felt like it was going against the system, trying to get just any type of benefits or support for the family. And as a young kid, I realized that trauma and that fear that my parents had every time that they missed a pay stub, every time that they didn't turn in a document. So I'm running for office for this county seat to make sure that, folks and families who rely on these services are not traumatized by it already, right? So my key priorities are to make sure that we preserve and create more affordable housing. Here in St. Paul, the East Side is one of the last places for affordable housing. And that's also where we get such a rich culture and environment over here, where we're majority people of color, but very young. 60% of us are under the age of 35. In addition to that, we're also super diverse and also majority people of color. So that means we have opportunities and a chance and a choice to invest now or to deal with, further desperate impacts into our neighborhoods. So my second piece is making sure that we have safe streets and neighborhoods where we can walk, bike, and cross and get around without fear of getting hit or deaths basically on the streets. And that's what's happened here on the East Side. In addition to that, the third piece is we must take action on our climate action plan. We must invest in renewable energy, make sure that the county is being a leader in that and supporting the organics recycling, composting, making sure that we have more clinics where we can fix and reuse old appliances before we throw them away in the trash. So those are key pieces that I will make sure that I will be prioritizing. And finally, is making sure that our county services are accessible, meaning that when people are at the county, they get served well, that they're not spending so much time just trying to get help and support. Because the people that we serve here are all the residents, but by the time that many of our residents come to us, especially the health and human services, they are working class people and time is money for them, right? So if we have long wait times, we can't provide them support, or we are requiring them to wait for an interpreter for 15, 30 minutes, that's a disservice. So those are all the key reasons why I'm running, and just to bring that voice and perspective. And if elected, I would be the youngest person to serve and the first Asian American to serve on the county board.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mike Chong. As you know, domestic violence, especially one can make an argument saying that during the pandemic, domestic violence has gone up, but then you can also make the same argument saying that domestic violence has always been an issue. And so if elected to the county and knowing the county has a lot of available resources, how would you use your office to address domestic violence?
Yeah. We think that, or us younger people, I won't speak for all, but, we think that, it's the older generation that the issues will go away. But when we look at some of the data and some of the most recent cases of like the murder suicides, we see that it's people within my age group, like people in their 30s, working class. So we must address that, there are layers and intersections of like race, culture, and the bottom line too is also the patriarchy about how that hurts and harms our communities. And so growing up, I witnessed domestic violence and it was a norm. And I just know so many of my friends and so many aunties who were in situations like that, where it was really hard and complicated, right? But the data tells us that anytime a person tries to leave an abusive relationship, that's also the most crucial and critical time where it's most dangerous for them. So those are data points that I've learned from my time working in the city hall and also partnering with like the St. Paul and Ramsey domestic violence intervention programs. So I would say we need more resources. And we need to make sure that it's not only shelter that we are providing to people when they are leaving those situations, but also support like childcare, because they have multiple relationships or things that they're holding. So it's the relationships, taking care of families, making sure that the kids can still be in the same school district, and that they're at every point of those times that people are safe. So it means that we need to resource our communities. We need to resource and make it culturally acceptable, basically, right? That people can leave relationships and not fear death.
Well, the district you're running in, which is also the district where we all live, includes most of the East Side, which is really diverse and has large concentrations of poverty. So they tend to use a lot of county services on that part. But how will you ensure that our diverse community also receives the attention and other resources that we need from the county?
Yeah, it all starts with our plans, right? At all like municipal levels or government, it starts with our plans and our guiding documents about where we choose to put funding and where we are going to spend our time and priority. The county has been doing a lot of that work already. The East Side is primed and ready for it. So we need someone who have access to those documents and can actually lead and push staff to be able to do that, right? Because on the county board, we are just overseeing, and we do make a lot of those decisions, but we also have to be firm in making sure that we have the partnerships on the ground, partnerships on the board, to actually guide policy and staff to do the work and carry out the work. So my plan is to really follow those county plans, but also to build those relationships and have those relationships in line already. And my endorsements include, our current board chair, Trista Matis Castillo, Commissioner Rafael Ortega, and also our current representative, Rena Moran, who will be the county commissioner in District 4. And so those are, I'm sorry, I don't think I got her district number correct. But she'll be, she's also in St. Paul too. So those are key relationships and partnerships that I will have, that I bring. And they are all aligned in that we need to resource and prioritize communities where we have concentrations of poverty. But like how I like to think of it, it's like concentrations of opportunities. And that's really our people. And our people are going to be the ones who will generate, the business ideas or the innovative ideas to actually bring in resources into the community here.
Thank you, Chong. If people want to learn more about you, contact you, or have questions, how can they reach you? And your closing statement, please.
I really appreciate this. I feel like it's been so short and I would love more time, but I know that the time is brief. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm Maiv Choo Xyooj. I am running for Ramsey County Commissioner. I'm running because I want to make sure that we bring in resources and investments to the East Side here. And I am primed and ready with both the DFL endorsement as well as endorsements of our local elected leaders, like Representative Xiong, our council members here on the East Side, like Councilmember Prince, Councilmember Nelsie Yang. Those are all key and crucial relationships that we need at all levels to make sure that we have concentrated focus and bring investments to the East Side. And I'm ready to do that. If folks want to learn more, please visit my website at www.maichongxiong.org, or else folks may call me too. This is my phone. It's my cell phone. It's 651-505-0260. And then also follow me on social media, MCX for the people.
Thanks for joining us this evening, Maiv Chong. I know that you're running for public office is not easy, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this. Folks, you've heard it, so go out and vote this fall for the candidates who share your values and who will fight for you. We've heard from House candidates to the county level, and so it's very important that you get out there and vote. You can go vote early now. And for more information on that, you can go to mnvotes.org, where they will tell you where you can go vote, or if you're not registered, how to register to go vote. And so I'll pass over to Terry.
All right. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. As Jay said, please go get out there and vote. You can vote early right now. Bring your family and friends to go vote. It's a really important year. If we don't, we know that if we are not, this is kind of the minimum ask. We ask for people to participate in our democracy is to get out there and share our vote. Thanks again to Representative Xiong for joining me and co-hosting tonight's show. We're really excited to be joined by all of our guests, to see those who still are going to work with us as we figure out policies that benefit all of us here across the state in this country. So thank you very much. Shinji Doa and good night.